Yes, good evening, and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting of Monday, December the 6th, 2022. I'd like to extend apologies on behalf of the Board of Trustees for the delay this evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? Seeing none. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as distributed. I would like now to turn this meeting over to Chair Donna Edwards and Trustee Carolyn Morton.
There's supposed to be a mic down there, I think. I was just going to ask Director Marsh and Trustee Morton to meet me down in the center, so to join me to help me actually put words of the impact and legacy that Director Marsh has left us with as she takes on her new adventure of retirement. So if we could go down there and we can. Okay. I just wanted to say at this point in time, Director Marsh, that we really appreciate the leadership that you have provided us during what has been a little bit of a difficult time for the Durham District School Board. It's been challenging, but you have definitely focused on student success, student achievement, and ensuring that we have student and staff mental health during this time and well-being, and continued to actually move things forward for the Durham District School Board. Again, I just want to say thank you and for your service, and your hopefully your retirement will be a little bit smoother and more sort of that. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Trustee Morton, as she has worked with you a lot longer than I have as chair, past chair.
Thank you. Nora, when you joined us as Associate Director in November of 2019, we had no idea what would transpire over the next 3 years. Who would have known that 2 months later you would be in the position of Acting Director of the DDSB? And 6 weeks beyond that, we found ourselves in the midst of a pandemic. Shortly thereafter, you became Director. Our work became very different. Our student experience was challenging. In-class learning versus virtual learning, in-person board meetings, committee meetings, or we'll zoom in on that. There were so many questions. Masking, vaccinations, graduations, provincial testing, busing, lunchroom protocols, Chromebook distribution, recognition of retirees, mental health supports, And the list goes on. So many more questions. Parents, students, and staff are all very familiar with the challenges that we've had in the last 10 days. Your summer vacations of 20 and 21, they were non-existent. But I have to say, Nora, it was always nose to the grindstone, not only for you, but for our senior staff as well. You have always had chin up, shoulders back, we're marching forward. You've been a strong leader as we've navigated these very challenging waters. It has been a pleasure to work with you over the last 3 years. Your leadership and your strong determination have had a positive effect on the lives and the learning experiences of our students, our staff, our parents, in fact, the whole DDSB community. We wish you all the best as you enter this new pathway of life. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Miigwech. Hugs to Nora. Thank you.
Well, the trustees won't be surprised that I want to respond. I want to thank you both sincerely for your very kind words. And I also want to reflect and thank the whole Board of Trustees from the last term who gave me this wonderful opportunity. I very much appreciate it. I don't think any of us, as you indicated, Trustee Morton, realized what we were in for my tenure here. But I think despite it all, we were able to accomplish a lot of things that we should be proud of. And if you'll bear with me, I wouldn't mind highlighting just a few. I want to begin, though, when I reflect on the accomplishments that both the Board of Trustees and staff accomplished on the senior team, Carolyn, who you mentioned in your words, and how every single success we've had is because of the senior team. And I am personally and professionally very indebted to each of them for their commitment, care, generosity, and perseverance during very challenging times. It's humbling for all of us to serve students and their families and the staff of the Durham District School Board, and it can be at the best of times challenging. Certainly we've seen it far more than I think any other senior team has, as well as Board of Trustees. But I do believe we've laid a strong foundation to support, and I believe that with this new board coming in a new term, we feel very optimistic about building on the foundation of the accomplishments from the previous term and the previous work of the senior team. We introduced a framework for good governance with the phasing out of trustee regulations and the creation of the governance committee. We introduced Durham District School Board's first ever human rights policy and a complete revisioning of the Indigenous education and safe and respectful workplace policies. Those were all huge pieces of work to move forward during a time when it was easy to get distracted by the challenges that we had. I'm also thrilled that we launched Durham District School Board's first art gallery at the Education Center, and we ensured that we privileged arts and humanities along with the emphasis of STEM. We're a learning district, and as a result, we've engaged with district student focus groups, and in particular have looked to engage those who have been historically marginalized by the system and make sure that we value and privilege their voice in how we move forward as a district. So for all of these reasons, I feel like the time here, while it's easy to remember all of the tough days when, as you indicated, Chair Morton, or Trustee Morton, that we really didn't have a roadmap for what we were looking to do, but we did, and we accomplished so much. And I'm internally grateful for everyone in this room for what we were able to accomplish and the focus on student success. Public education is so important in terms of creating the sort of society we want that is grounded in respect and dignity and equity, and that's the role we have played throughout these challenging times in terms of the pandemic and other contexts. And I think everyone should feel really proud of their association with the Durham District School Board. So I thank you for the opportunity and your kind words this evening.
Moving forward on the agenda then to item 6, and I'll call on Director Marsh for the director's update.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Superintendent Mundy just to give a brief labor relations update for the board. And I'll also note before doing so that the other item that I know people will be interested in terms of the update is the cyber incident, which appears separately under the agenda. So over to you, Superintendent Mundy, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Today, the OSBCU bargaining team announced a 73% vote in favor of the tentative agreement, central agreement, and that they had a record 70% of their membership voting. Once we have approval from the Council of Trustees Associations, which includes OSPA, the central collective agreement for CUPE will be ratified. CUPE represents 4 units with our board: custodial maintenance, office clerical technical, education assistance, and continuing education. Central bargaining is ongoing for both OSSTF and ETFO, and we will continue local bargaining with all our unions to reach negotiated local collective agreements. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Mundy. And I'll go back to Director Marsh then to introduce the first information item on our agenda, briefing on the cybersecurity.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Associate Director Wright to begin the briefing for you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. In the early morning hours of Friday, November 25th, our IT department detected a significant amount of activity on our network and moved very quickly to stop and control it. Led by our IT department, staff have worked basically nonstop since to ensure that schools and corporate functions could continue to operate. Over the last couple of years, as the information technology landscape has continued to evolve, we have talked a lot about incident response plans, disaster recovery plans, and we have been planning and prepping for what-if scenarios. Our system was unfortunate in that it was forced to engage in a crash course test of our response to those what-if scenarios. But one of the bright lights of the situation has been that our staff have pulled together and our team has done an amazing job of getting us back up and running in a very short period of time. It has been a monumental effort and is a testament to our staff's skills and professionalism. Though there was a significant manual effort behind the scenes, day school students noticed little interruption to their regular school routines. DDSB at home students, unfortunately, were not able to attend their classes due to this cyber incident from Monday through to Wednesday last week, but we're back in class on Thursday. Kudos to school administration and staff who once again highlighted their ability to adapt to changing circumstances when required as they continue to successfully support students throughout this event. School applications continue to be brought back online in a controlled manner and in a priority order. IT staff are currently focused on getting PowerSchool back up and running, which will restore our safe arrival callouts. We have already taken steps to improve our security, the network security, and strengthen our network access. Work is currently underway to investigate what happened, the extent of the impact, how we can prevent a similar situation from occurring again, and if there are any privacy concerns that need to be addressed. This work is extremely complex and will take a significant amount of time to complete. We are committed to keeping all stakeholders informed and will continue to share new information as it becomes available, including what measures, if any, individuals should be taking. We would like to extend sincere appreciation to all of our staff, students, parents, guardians, and community members for their understanding and support as we work to get critical systems back online. That's my report. Madam Chair, happy to answer any questions through you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Associate Director Wright? And I'm seeing none. Thank you very much. Oh.
Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead, Ben.
Did I hear correctly that students did not face many disruptions in the classroom or something along those lines? Did I hear that correctly?
I did say that students faced little interruption to the regular school routines for in-person learning, and that students were able to continue with their regular classes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I don't think that's reflective of what I was seeing. Everything that I do in my classes is on my Chromebook. Or on my laptop, and I was lucky that this laptop that I have is able to access my account. But many of the Chromebooks that the students were using had logged them out, and the system that they were using to get back in wasn't working. So most Chromebooks were not usable, and so there was lots of challenges and I would say disruptions to the learning, at least in my classrooms in my school. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I'm seeing no additional questions, so I'll move on then on the agenda. Item 8B, the student trustee report. And I'll call on student trustees Ben Cameron and Gwen Kuit to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, this is our December report. Last month, at our Student Senate meeting, we held internal elections to determine positions such as Student Voice Working Group Chair. We are very excited to see what senators will accomplish moving forward. For trustees who don't know, the Student Senate is a body made up of 3 students from each secondary student in Durham. We meet every month and work to amplify the voices and concerns of students. We would also like to congratulate trustees, new and returning, on being elected. We look forward to working with all of you this year. This is our report. We would be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions for student trustees. Thank you very much for your report. And I'll move on then to the 2022 Director's Annual Report, and I'll call on Director Marsh.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Beginning on folio 3, you'll see this year's annual report, which is a requirement under the Education Act that is produced for the community. But there's nothing about compliance in creating this report. It's actually about the joy of learning and opportunities that were created over the course of 2022 as we emerged from a very difficult time and continued adapting to new parameters and the continued impact of the pandemic. During the year, though, we did have the opportunity to progress back to more regular routines and became rejuvenated by offering some of the treasured rituals that we know both students, well, all students and staff and families appreciate. And so in this report, I'm very proud to reflect the work of the fine staff of the Durham District School Board, acknowledge the opportunities we've been able to provide display student engagement in some of the, and family engagement in some of the opportunities, but also reflect that there are continued challenges for us as a board, and that those are captured within some of the reports within that annual report as well. I'll note this is a draft. There will be a few revisions before it goes out on the website and is distributed, but I want to thank everyone in the Durham community, because it was when we came together that we were able to offer so much of value for the students. I'm happy to take any questions on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Marsh. Director Marsh will take any questions. And I'm not seeing any. So I'd like to call on Associate Directors Jim Markowski and David Wright, and Executive Lead Robert Serjanik, for an update on the recent public health recommendations.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Thatcher, the report begins on page 39 of your package this evening. As an extension to the report that was shared on November 21st, the purpose of the report this evening is to provide trustees with information on actions taken in response to the recent correspondence from Dr. Kyle, the Commissioner and Medical Officer of Health for Durham Region, that strongly recommends masking for students while at school, on the bus, and at childcare. Under the analysis section of the report, you will note a series of communication measures that have been implemented in response to the recommendation. These measures include targeted messaging for families and staff, strongly encouraging them to follow masking, daily screening, and hand washing recommendations. With the recent cyber incident, we have experienced some delay in the ability to share information. We've highlighted some additional communications that will take place once we return to standard operations. And we should note that our communication strategy is ongoing. Through the period of the recommendation, we will continue to provide schools and the system with necessary information and reminders. That is the end of our report. We'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for the update. And I'm seeing no questions. Why is it not coming up here?
It looks like it turned on. Can I ask my question?
I think you're on.
Okay, perfect. What I wanted to ask was, understanding that not all the communication that has gone, you want to put out has gone out because of the cyber incident. I wanted to know if we've seen any uptake in mask wearing at schools in response to the communication that has gone out so far.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. That's a great question, Trustee Cunningham. I don't have specific stats to let you know in terms of what uptake has looked like specifically from one site to the next. What I can share with you is that, in particular, as the weather is, we're entering that kind of cold and flu season, that we have seen an increase in mask taking. So the messaging is getting out there. I would say that even within the past few weeks, the uptake has increased. Again, I don't have data or statistics to really quote. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm seeing no further questions. So I'll call on Trustee.
Sorry.
Pardon
Sorry,
me?
I have a question, Stephen.
Oh, Stephen, my apologies. Go ahead.
No problem. So again, just reading some of the strategies, but also recognizing that the board is full of, multilingual and diverse families. So is there any consideration, as we're starting to look towards adherence, of printing or putting material out in a variety of languages to try and reach some of that diverse population and multilingual families?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. And Trustee Linton, that's a great question. I think it's not necessarily specific to information that we would be sending out in relation to the recommendation. We have, I would say, for the past year or so, been analyzing opportunities on how it is that we could differentiate our communication strategy to ensure that it is reaching different languages. What I can share with you right now is that we are looking at options, and once we have landed on an option or some options, we can share an update with you. I'm not sure if Executive Lead Sir Janik has anything further to add in relation to that.
Thanks, Associate Director Markowski. One of the main avenues that we do have is through our website, which can be translated, and there are some materials on there. But in addition, what we will be doing when we are able to share materials with schools to specifically communicate directly with their families. Each school leader understands their community and what some of the more predominant groups might be with that, and are able to then tailor and adjust that strategy within those individual school communities.
Supplemental, Trustee Linton?
Yeah, maybe just one more around just the availability of masks. So again, we're using the strongly recommended. So will that ensure that masks are readily available for students on site should, you know, a mask become soiled during recess, or if a mask is lost during the school day? So basically, are they going to be readily available for students?
Sorry, Trustee Linton, I didn't catch the question within that. I apologize.
So asking, will masks be readily available for students on site? Let's say a student does bring a mask, but it becomes soiled. Will there be an opportunity to replace a mask? Or if, you know, the mask is lost between, you know, traveling between home and school, I guess, will the masks be on site for students? Will the masks be on site for students?
All right, thank you, and my apologies for that. So what I can share with you is that we do have a central ordering system called eBase that school administrators do access both PPE for staff and cloth masks for students. So they are accessible, and if for any reason children do soil them at school, there would be plenty that they can actually access to make sure that there's a replacement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the OPSPA report, I'd like to call on Trustee Emma Cunningham. Go ahead, Emma.
Thank you, Chair. A hard copy of this is being handed out right now. I apologize that it wasn't included with the agenda materials. I did not have it available digitally at the time that those went out. But I wanted to share with you a survey that OPSPA did around education and what people believe should be spent on it. So first of all, I was happy to see that overall people believe that education is a very important investment in the future. They took a look at some of the funding and education priorities. They took a look at Indigenous reconciliation and also electing or appointing school board trustees. I was happy to see that 9 in 10 Ontario residents agree or somewhat agree that spending on public education is an investment in the future, which is a slight decline from the 2019 wave. Ontarians are more likely to think that funding for education should be set based on the number of students and inflation, with 4 in 10 say so, while 1 in 4 say it should be set based on overall provincial spending, and 1 in 5 say it should be based on inflation only. A strong majority of Ontarians continue to say that it is important to have more funding for the maintenance, repair, and renewal of schools, special education programs, and funding for school boards to offer mental health support. Although there was a decrease compared to 2019, most Ontarians continue to say that they are opposed or somewhat opposed to public tax dollars being used to help fund the private education system. Those with no children in public school are more likely to be opposed or somewhat opposed, 62%, compared to those with 1, 51%, or 2 or more children, 54%, in public school. Opposition is also higher the older that the survey participants were. When presented with various priorities, about 9 in 10 Ontarians each say that it is important to expand opportunities for students to learn computer coding and science, technology, engineering, and math in school. It's important to have more funding for school boards to ensure schools are accessible for all individuals with disabilities. And it's important to have more funding for mental health and community-based supports and services. Ontarians are split as to whether or not Ontario's public education system does a very good or good job, or does a very poor or poor job when it comes to reconciliation with Indigenous people. 33% acknowledge and believe that the schools teach the truth of what happened to Indigenous people, and they believe it should be added to the curriculum. 27% wasn't aware of what schools were doing in order to better Indigenous reconciliation, whereas 11% believe that they should have more Indigenous people talk about their culture, feature more Indigenous teachers, and more activities in schools. These are just some of the suggestions that came up in terms of what the DDSB and other school boards can do to further boost its relationship with Indigenous people and ensure that all Ontario students understand their place and in our province. When it comes to electing or appointing school board trustees, Ontarians are over 4 times more likely to say that it is better to elect school board trustees rather than to have them appointed by the Government of Ontario. And that wraps up the survey from OPSPA, and that is the end of my report today.
Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. Just looking to see if there are any questions for you. And I'm seeing none. Thank you. Shailene.
Thank you so much for the report, Trustee Cunningham. I did have just a question on what the action item following this survey is. Did OPSPA say how exactly they would be utilizing this? I assume in requests or proposals for government funding, but was there any further details on if this will be used for an initiative of some sort or reviews of any kind?
So they did do a media release with the results of the survey. I believe that was the main priority, was to get the research out there for the public to see it. However, it was also given to MPPs on Advocacy Day, which took place on the 28th at Queen's Park. So all MPPs have had a chance to review the survey.
Supplemental?
I just said, so there's nothing further that we know of at this time that they'll do in addition to that.
It will remain one of OPSPA's key priorities.
Okay. Thank you.
And going to Chair Edwards. Go ahead, Donna.
Traditionally, what happens is that the survey information is taken, and as the strategic plan and the key priorities are addressed, they take some of this survey data and they also use it when they're doing we're doing any responses back to the ministry on policy changes, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a basis, just one basis of information that they use for ongoing priorities of OPSPA.
Thank you for your comment, Chair Edwards. Just looking to see if there are any further questions for Emma. And I'm seeing none. Thank you very much for that report. Before I adjourn the meeting, I'd like to remind trustees and staff that we will reconvene and finish the meeting that we started earlier. As there is no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.